Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18 plus.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I am your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. Welcome to the show, guys. Another Friday night. Let's see, what are we? March, April, May 9th, 2025. Great day to be alive. Okay. Little off my game for the moment here. I set up a couple of those bug bobs in my house, and I just had to go out for a little while. And when I came back to air out, have to air it out for another 2 hours. And my window got stuck, so I slammed it down as hard as I could, and I broke the window. Gadzooks. Well, welcome to the Opperman Report. If you need to get a hold of me as a private investigator, you can contact me through oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. That's oppermaninvestigations and Digital Forensic Consulting. If you like our show, be sure to check out our Patreon, Opperman Report Patreon. Got a ton of content up there. A ton. A literal 2,000 pounds of content if you go to Opperman Report Patreon. Where's my notes? There we go. Let's see what we got up there. I'm taping with A.J. Weberman about Sirhan. He's on a tear. A.J.'s on a tear. How lucky am I, man, to, have an old friend like that. Such a renowned expert on the JFK and RFK and Sirhan kind of stuff, So I have him in the wings because we were supposed to tape this week. And what happened was Skype discontinued their services. And since they were working every day, I was booking these guests, still using Skype, but now I got to figure out something else like Zoom or something, which I still can't make it compatible with Spreaker. If people only knew, like my technical stuff. People say, "Oh, Ed, you need to hire an engineer." And when I lived across the street from the radio station. The engineer would come over all the time, okay, and he would set everything up. And a few nights later, the settings would all be changed. You guys, it's not a matter of not having the expertise to come in and fix this stuff. The problem is having the hackers come in here and mess with my stuff, or even worse. Okay, and it's not just this, man. That's people are blocked. Dan O'Hanks is blocked on my Facebook. I didn't block him. He didn't block me. He doesn't even know how to block people. He's never blocked anybody. Okay. I got the text messages are missing from my Facebook. Forget Twitter, man. That's totally hacked. But anyway, so, luckily for me, I happen to know AJ. And I was taping, I was going to tape with this other fellow. And it turns out that I was going to tape to him about John Holmes, the Johnny Wad, the porn star. And it's kind of funny. The way I was looking for a guest to interview about Roy Cohen. And I was looking up Roy Cohen to see who, an author or an expert about Roy Cohen. I found this guy I found Dawn Schiller, who was the ex-wife of John Holmes, the porn star. She was only 15 years old when she was with this guy. I think she was an ex-girlfriend. She may not have been her ex-wife. Because John Holmes used to hang out with Roy Cohen and fly around. Roy Cohen used to fly him around on his jet, his yacht and stuff, So I booked an interview with this guy who has done a film and a book about John Holmes. And I see one of the books he wrote was about the Pope of Pot, Mickey Cesar. And I thought, look at that. I knew Mickey, look at this. And I'm reading all this stuff about Mickey, in his book there. I'd never seen before. So he had a ship or something in Amsterdam, all this all this stuff. He had some connection to Hunter S. Thompson, all kind of stuff I didn't know about. So then I stumbled upon, I was introducing AJ to somebody else, a really good researcher and author, Casey Gain, I'll tell you who it is. It's all one big family here, right? Again, dysfunctional family. And Casey Gain wrote the book, CIA Secret War in Jamaica. Great research. He's always doing great articles and stuff like that, so keep an eye out for him. And so he wanted me to introduce him to AJ. And so I just happened to bump into AJ online. And I said, "Hey, AJ, my friend wants to talk to you." And he shoots me a phone number. So I call him up. I thought he wanted me to call him, but he didn't. He just wanted me to hand over a number. But here I am on the phone now with AJ. Which, it's no easy task. These are all people with big personalities. Like good old Ed Opperman has to navigate these folks. But I managed to do it. So what do you call it? So I tell him, hey, I'm interviewing this other guy this week, and he knows Mickey. I sent him the article, right? And he goes, oh, he comes back with all this stuff. Oh, yeah, Mickey had this yacht, and those guys he's talking about, those are kids that used to live with Mickey. He knows more than the other guy knows. So we're all now trading info back and forth. So a couple of big interviews coming up there. to keep an eye out for and look out for. Good old AJ and this other fellow. I can't mention the guy's name because otherwise all the crazy people out there will contact him. You know, tell him, Ed Opperman's Mossad assassin. Ed Opperman's not good. God, zooks. I think in the member section now, I don't think I played it yet, is Jeremy Kazmarov about the October surprise. But I have another one coming up with Craig Unger, who's the editor of Vanity Fair. I'm taping with him, too, also about the October surprise. And I did a show a couple of weeks back about Oliver North and his involvement with the October surprise. I believe he sabotaged that Operation Eagle Claw, the helicopter rescue. Because I just found it for the first time. This article was declassified just recently. I've been searching for it for years. I went to a lecture in New York in 1986, before a lot of you were even born. Okay, and I saw this guy. He said, "You know what, Ollie North, man, he's involved with this Iran-Contra, and he was also there on this mission, this helicopter mission to rescue the hostages." And I was looking, it's stuck in the back of my head. One of those things I looked for. It's been scrubbed off the internet, and as an article came out in the New York Times, it's just declassified by the CIA called Gung Ho, Operation Gung Ho. New York Times CIA. Google that, you'll find it. You can read it. I think I posted it. I'll post it again. I'll post it on Twitter and Facebook for you. Kind of guy I am. So there's that stuff there. October Surprise, Craig Unger and Jeremy Kazmar from Covert Action Magazine, and where's Jeremy's from. Now get this, I'm taping with the Shovel Girl. Kids, you know who the Shovel Girl is? Okay, the Shovel Girl, remember back on YouTube about 10 years ago? These two, like 15, 16-year-old girls, they live in a trailer park type situation there. And they're going to duke it out. They're going to have a fight in front of their trailer park over their man. They're fighting over a man, a boy, And they're out there, strutting out there. They're going to have a fair fight. And, they're talking their smack, like you do in the trailer park there. And one girl goes around the side of the house there and picks up a shovel. The other one takes off running, but she gets whacked in the back of the head with, I'm sure you've seen this. She gets whacked in the back of the head with that shovel and takes a face plant on the concrete there. So anyway, she's reclaimed her identity. She's gone to college. I believe she's some kind of a psychology major or something like that. And she's back on the internet now as Shovel Girl. And of course, my the investigative skills, I've tracked her down. And she's agreed to grace us with an interview. It's kind of funny. What was the other thing? They mentioned her on Family Guy. Peter Griffin says, "I'm going to go attack this neighbor like a trailer park shovel girl." So, she's an icon. She's an American icon, One day we'll be in the Smithsonian. But first, she will be on the Opperman Report. I guarantee you that. And I tell you, it's so funny because I was telling Vic, I said, "Hey, I got Shovel Girl." Ooh, Shovel Girl. And I'm telling her all this stuff about Shovel Girl. And she says, "Ed, Dad." She doesn't call me Ed. She calls me Dad. She goes, "Dad, how are you going to fill an hour with Shovel Girl?" I says, "Are you kidding? The Shovel Girl rising from the phoenix." Rising like a phoenix from the ashes to reclaim her identity. Where are you now, Shovel Girl? Where, who are you fighting over? What happened to the other girl? I have a million questions for Shovel Girl. I can talk to Shovel Girl from the morning, noon, and night. I got a Michael Jackson insider, okay, a super duper insider, okay. This guy's got some really inside information. He worked for Jackson and he knows some of the victims, so we got him, okay. He's in the works, man. I'm taping with him in the middle of May. You'll see that in Patreon first, okay. And by the way, too, if we can get some members of Patreon, if you recently ended your subscription, to save that $3 a month. You can get the shows ad-free, get them early, now we're like a weeks early, I got content in there, weeks earlier. There's weeks of content in there they haven't heard yet on the air yet. But I got all these expenses surrounding me here. You have no freaking clue. Just like this avalanche of expenses have dropped upon me. And, I was really sick the past couple of years, so I let a lot of things slip and slide and slip away from me. So I got my health back, but now I got this mounting bills and, like $900 in the x-ray bills alone, and then I got this window I got to fix, and I let a lot of stuff, I got to come up with about 10 grand. $11,000 in 45 days. It's not hopeless. I can probably do it. But, I'm old, man. Why do I got to keep doing this, man, So Franklin Cover-Up, I have a woman whose brother was one of the victims of Alan Baer. And we get into a lot. I went on with her. It went over time, like an hour and 45 minutes. Great content there. Fletcher Prouty, I interviewed this film director, Jeff Carter, about his film about Fletcher Prouty, who was Mr. X in the Oliver Stone film there. Check that out. That's in there with the Patreon section there. Then I got this fellow. Please, let me find this fellow here. I just had it pulled up. What you know it. Let me see if I go there. And use your backspace. Nope, that doesn't work. Go forward space. I'm going to go here and go backspace. There it is. Claudio Bono. Claudio Bono. He's founded this organization called GiveARoof.org. Now, talked to this guy. Really enjoyed his company. A really good guy. This is a totally one-man operation, grassroots operation here. This is still on the ground floor. GiveARoof.org. So we're at the stage still. If you just can go to his Twitter page and retweet it and share it and to build up his plan here to end homelessness, okay? And what his idea is to use credit card points and airline miles and hotel loyalty rewards in order to convert those points into hotel rooms for homeless people, temporary, but also ultimately too to everything. Rehab, rebuild, and homelessness now. A roof, drug treatment, psychological treatment, job training, the whole works there that can just be paid. And I just imagine, when you go, you see that Credit One application, and you go online and you have all the different kinds. Hey, you want to get cash back? You want to get a zero, monthly. What if there was another one that says, hey, would you like to help end homelessness? Give to givearoof.org. How much money could be raised overnight? Because those guys get like 3% of every transaction. That's a lot of money, man. It's no joke. But you got to be nice to those people. Otherwise, they'll cancel your credit card processing service if you complain about the monopoly they have over that. And they're kind of illegitimate way they've kind of wormed their way into the monetary system and created this digital monetary system there out of thin air, and bill us, and take a little 3% off the top. Yeah, it's okay. And if you bring that up, a lot of heat comes down on you. A lot of heat. Ooh. Why would someone send me that?
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Creepy people. Creepy. Oh, we got this fellow Z. He was on the documentary film there called Leaving Neverland 2. And really got along great with this guy. We met him through Mike Parzali from mjvictims.org. Or mjvictims.com, I forget. And which goes to his Facebook page, which is MJ Victims. What do you call it? So I met him through Mike Parzali. And really got along great. This is a real guy. He's tuned into all the different cases, just like we are here. He knows all the stuff we know. And he has some inside info on Michael Jackson. And also, too, R. Kelly actually went to his high school. When this guy was in high school, R. Kelly showed up at his high school and started hitting on all the teenage girls that were in front of his eyes. Alleged and Sins of the South. A couple of true crime author books types on there. We have them on there. And that's about it. Let's see. I got some other updates for you real quick. One is my medical update. Is I went to my follow-up visit, and everything's going as good as I can. I had to postpone my cardiologist because I had a limp. I'm limping right now, and you have to do that stress test with the treadmill, you know, and I wouldn't be able to do it right now because I got this limp. And I got this other kind of cyst thing. I forget what it's on, but it's down there in my groin area near where my hernia was on the other side. So that's my little medical update for you. But trust me, man, my health is so much better than it was like a month and a half ago. I'm down 25 pounds. I'm like 198 pounds. So I'm really getting back in shape there. Working on this situation here. Let me know if you want to help out or chip in. One of our guests who was on the show here and was related to that company, the drug smuggling operation with Mr. Grassi there and Fuzzy Thornton, who was in that movie, The Cocaine Bear, that group. Okay. You know, Fuzzy Thornton was the guy that jumped out of the plane there with the cocaine and the money strapped to his body. And then, as the folklore goes, the bear ate the coke, which who knows if that happened or not. There was some coke that was tampered with. Probably the cops. The first rescuers. Let me get some of that coke on this guy's chest quick before the other guys show up. We stored a little of that too. But anyway, she's found herself in jail, and I'm working on getting her out. But if anybody wants to chip into her commissary, you can send it over to me at oppermanreport@gmail.com through PayPal, and I'll make sure she sees it. She's been in there for 9 months on nothing. Okay, just a minor probation violation. She should have been out of there in 30 days. She hasn't even had a hearing. Sitting in there for 9 months, okay? And, you know, luckily she knows somebody like me who's kind of savvy and knows their way around things, can help out. But otherwise, there's so many people in there that can't. They have no one helping them. She pretty much has no one helping her but me. And what have I got? I've got no one helping me. I've got zero helping me, man. No, well, I got Ed Parnell, you know, who helps me out. But otherwise, I got no help, man. I do everything on my own, and people I can hire and pay. Otherwise, you know, I got my own problems I got to deal with, you know. But I know people get joy out of my problems, so, you know. Okay. Speaking of problems, one of my favorite guests I've ever had on this show, and I consider him a friend. I remember one time we were on a phone together, and as we were about to hang up, I says, "Hey, man, I love you." And I know I took him by surprise, and he goes, "I love you too." Ted Rubenstein, okay, legendary Ted Rubenstein. He's not doing well. He's in the hospital. They're no longer giving him what do they call that? Life sustaining or care, recuperative care, recovery care, and they're just giving him comfort care. He's lying in his hospital bed there. He can hear. But he can't talk. He can squeeze his caretaker's hand. That's the last I heard a couple of days ago. And I haven't heard from her since. There's just so much chaos and stuff going on. She has no place to go. And his brother's demanding, you know, wants to sell his house in 30 days. You know, good old Ted's not even cold yet. Not even dead yet. Not even cold to begin with, you know. So that's a tragic situation there. I'm going to do a whole tribute for Ted. Okay, because I love Ted. And Ted has been a big help for this show, man. You know, whenever he brought things to me I'd never heard about before. I never heard the name Ari Ben Menashe before I knew Ted. You know, Ted worked for May Brussels. He lived with Dave Emery. They were roommates at one point. And he worked for Flint Publication. I believe Rampart was another one too, or Vanguard, one of those magazines he worked for. So he's been out there a long, long time, one of the original guys out there doing this kind of work. Thankless work, let me tell you, man. This kind of, there's never going to be a statue for Ted Rubenstein, okay? Although there should be. Probably the only tribute he's going to get is going to come from my voice from this microphone, okay? And, of course, though, there's a flood of people, a swarm, you might call them, of people that are interested in obtaining his collection of his library and his books. Everybody wants that. But, you know, where were they when he was alive? You know, I know they weren't, because I'm the only phone number in his book, you know, and his phone there, you know, when they're looking for people, who's the only guy in there? Me. But what do you call it? Okay. I remember, you know, Ted he would give me advice. And when I was having a topic on, especially like Danny Casolero or Octopus, things like that, I would contact Ted and I says, "Hey, you got any questions I should ask, you know?" And he'd usually get back to me, you know, quickly with stuff and help. as the years went on, it was fewer and far between. He'd forget and stuff. But the one thing that sticks with me the most about Ted is one time I asked him, well, what do you think about so-and-so? And I wanted his, the guy's 10 years my senior. He's been around a long time. He's been in the mix of these things way before I am, even though before the radio show, I was kind of a known guy out there. I knew Ted Gunnarsson. I had contact with people from McMartin and stuff like that, and with Bill Cooper and Art Bell, I was out there, Yippies and AJ Weberman and stuff like that. I was out there, but not, this platform that I have now. And I asked him, I said, what do you think about so-and-so? Because he's been around a lot longer than me. And he goes, well, just like everybody else, they're wrong half the time. And, when I heard that, man, it took so much weight off myself, by the way, first of all, because then I said, you know what, it's all right to be wrong, and it really changed my outlook on things. And I was a lot less defensive about being wrong and more quick to correct myself when I was wrong, that's something that I learned from Ted. It's going to be a loss for me not to have him there to help me out and ask questions of, even though, like I said, in the past few years, it's been harder to get through to him and for him to remember, or even respond. Like the past couple of months, we had him on about the Jimmy Hoffa. We did a 3-part series with Jimmy Hoffa, about Jimmy Hoffa with Steve Kopesky. And then we had him, I had this dream to do a reunification with Dave Emery. And we did it. We got it done. It was about a week before, he wound up in the hospital. As a matter of fact, he wound up in the hospital the night that it aired. It wasn't it wasn't the Jerry Lewis, Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra moment that I had envisioned in my mind. I can tell you that. Okay. But, hey, listen, all I can do is do my best. I hope people understand I'm sincere with what I'm trying to do here. I got no ulterior motives. I'm not out trying to knock anybody else down in order to pick myself up, where there's a lot of that out there, So I don't know, man. My attitude has always been, rising waters lift all boats. And I've always tried to help, upcoming podcasters and even YouTubers back in the old days or researchers in this area. And I got to tell you, more than not, I regret it. There's some people out there that are cool, like, Casey Gain, Ted Rubenstein. There's some people out there, that are cool, but there's a lot of people out there that are no. And when you start scratching the surface, you find out why. You find out why. They're just provocateurs, man. Just agent provocateurs out there. And people will tell me, and I do my investigation. Here's my results. This is what I found out. And I try and explain that to some people. And say, well, they seem like such nice guys, and their research is so good. Yeah, okay, we swallow the Kool-Aid there, kid. I don't care. I don't care. I've done my investigation. These are the results of my investigation. If you have an opinion, you can have your opinion. It's not going to change, what I've discovered, what I've uncovered, what I've proven, at least to myself or whatever client I have at the moment. Oh, by the way, I'll give you an example. I'll give you a perfect example. When this whole thing came out about Virginia Guffre, and my phone gets ringing off the hook, man, from reporters and, authors and stuff and people out there, that kind of casual background gossip, that just goes back and forth. Hey, what do you hear? What do you think? What does this guy say? What does that guy say? And, that happens, and that's overwhelming, just that alone. And it's kind of a little funny story because I had met this reporter through Hoffenberg, okay? And then I had met this other reporter through Keith Davidson, the attorney, sponsors the show. And he was the attorney from the Stormy Daniels deal. He testified against Trump with the 34 felonies, And I worked on Keith with a lot of stuff, We sued Disney together and stuff. Charlie Sheen, a lot of stuff. For years, okay? And so Keith introduced me to this reporter one time. And these two reporters, the one I met through Keith and the one I met through Stephen Hoffenberg, have very similar names. And all this time, I've thought they're the same guy. So when I get a call from one, I think they're both the same guy. And I get a call from the other guy, I think it's the same guy. And so one guy, the one who I met through Hoffenberg, contacts me this week, and he wants to interview me and get a quote about Virginia Guffre and her situation. I tell him, well, I think it's a suicide. Well, what do you think? Blah, blah, blah. We go back and forth. Right? And then I realize he's not the same guy as the other one. But I was working on this other project one time involving some opposition research and a video and all kind of stuff like that. And the other guy I was working on with that, I introduced him to the wrong guy. And I said, hey, go to this guy. He can help you with the tape and the opportunity. He can help you work on this. I sent him to the wrong guy. But they made friends. They worked on it together. It worked out, I guess, somehow in the end. But just like the nutty Mr. Magoo over here, man, messing things up. But anyway, so I told him I didn't have a quote for him because I think it's suicide. And I had my reasons for thinking that. But the next day I was thinking about it, and I said, you know what, man, there's some things I want to get off my chest here about some people who a lot of people think are on the side of, a lot of people think, by the way, a lot of people think this whole Epstein stuff is black and white. All the young ladies are white victims, clean as snow. They're heroines, they're heroes, they can do no wrong. When you speak to them, you have to speak in hushed tones and with respect because they're victims, and they are victims, okay? But the thing is, I deal with plaintiffs every day, I got like 4 or 5 cases right now, but I'm going to be putting together this weekend. I deal with these plaintiffs all the time, and you have personal griefs with them, personal emotions. We have weaknesses. I have flaws. They have flaws. We have butt heads. There's especially when you've been through that kind of trauma. There's damages that are done to your life. You have trouble, relating to people. Especially getting along with a guy like me who's like this kind of father figure type of guy. I do have a rather scrappy, personality, in my own little way. As much as I try to be, patient and understanding and sympathetic, I still, I'm a nuts and bolts kind of guy. I want to get this job done. I'm gonna get the, we're gonna get through that wall, and we're gonna win this case. That's why you come and hire me for, not for for lullabies, and fairy tales and story time, sweet bedtime stories. You hire me because I'm a pit bull. So what do you call it? So my quote is going to be for this article is about people who have come to me trying to dig up dirt on the plaintiffs in this case, and you'd be shocked if you knew who these people were. And I can't come right out and say because they did try and hire me. These are potential clients. Like every time I can't out a client every time they come to me, but I can tell you this, man. Is that it's not all black and white out there like people think. And just because someone has like 500,000 followers on Instagram or Twitter or something like that, doesn't mean that they're a legit person, or that they're not that they're legit to begin with, but even that their motives are sincere. A lot of times they're not. And I hate to be the one to break it to you, but this is real life. It's not all, black and white like people like to think. Good guys and bad guys, white hats and black hats. It's not like that. There's all shades of gray in this stuff here, and there's all kind of people out there that are pulling the wool over your eyes, guys. Okay? And, I was trying to share my opinions on one of the Facebook groups, a Dave McGowan Facebook group, and people are attacking me saying, oh, Ed must be on the side of these, an Epstein side here, because he says it's a suicide when we all know it has to be, a murder. How do you know? You don't know. You're not involved in any of this, You're getting your information second, third hand. You're getting your information from someone that just interviewed me. Okay, now they're going to publish an article about what I'm saying. So now when you read him tell you what I said, now you're going to believe it. Okay, but when you hear me say it directly, no, that's not good enough. And that's what I got. That's the frustrating world I got to deal with, man. Try dealing with that kind of crazy crap. It's insanity. Try putting up with that, week after week after week. God, I got another good one for you. Jonathon Oddi just came out this week. The Jonathon Oddi, remember him? I told you about that guy. I played you the video. I talked about him with P. Diddy, that he went there and he shot up the Doral golf course, Mr. Trump's golf course down there. He got into a shootout with some cops, and they got video of him, and he's sliding along on the slippery waxed floors, shooting over his shoulder. And then he got shot a couple of times, too. He was such a tough guy, full of coke or meth or something. But he's there being interviewed in his hospital gown by the U.S. Secret Service, and he's talking about P. Diddy and Cassie and pink cocaine and all this stuff about the Illuminati and stuff. The Illuminati stuff, I think he just got that from Googling, okay? I've watched this video many, many times. It's only 30 minutes is the one available. There's got to be more to it. And when I looked up his case a couple of years ago when I first started talking about this guy, you look up the case. The shooting was 2019. As far as I know, there's still no disposition to this case. He hasn't gone to trial on his case. The only reason that could be is he's a witness for the government, okay? And it would have to be that way because when he says all this stuff, they're on video to the Secret Service about P. Diddy and sex trafficking, cocaine smuggling, and all this drug dealing and all kind of stuff like that. They can't just say, okay, thank you, Mr. Oddi. Oh, goodbye. They can't do that. They have to put a referral out there. They have to refer to DEA and FBI. They have to. Okay? There's no guy with a badge in the world who took a statement like that on videotape, and he's not going to make those perfunctory referrals. Okay? You got to. Okay? Otherwise, you're in the jackpot there if something happens in the future. Like, what would have happened if he did it, and then all these indictments came down on P. Diddy, and there's this video out there, and this guy just sat on it. He'd be in big trouble right now, okay? So I tried to explain this to people years ago. Hey, guys, take a look at this Oddi. And, even with NT Lawyer and stuff like that, I'm interviewing him, and I'm telling him about this Jonathon Oddi. He didn't hear about it. You heard about this here at the Opperman Report, the guy that can't even buy a window. Okay? The guy that is still trying to pay for his x-rays, You heard it here, man, years earlier. So now the Post comes out and says, hey, by the way, I'm the one that said, too, that he was paid off by Diddy. Because we looked up and we saw his divorce records. He said he had no money. And then we looked at property records. We saw he had just purchased all these properties. He got a $5 million settlement from P. Diddy to sign a non-disclosure. $5 million. Okay? For Diddy, who's a known pervert, a known shooter-upper guy, shooting pregnant ladies in the head. But where'd you hear that first? You heard that from me. But you don't believe it till you see the New York Post say it. And now we believe it. Okay. What about, if I'm wrong, I'll say it. If I'm wrong, prove me I'm wrong.
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Okay, the show tonight was supposed to be at the West Memphids Three. That was going to be the main thing because it is the anniversary, I think 32 years of May 5th when those little boys got killed by those disgusting punks. And, I'm not going to do I don't feel comfortable doing a marathon about West Memphids Three on the anniversary of their death. I just don't feel that's right. Although a lot of people seem to be, glorifying that date. Not me. But I get a lot of grief from people, who say, oh, Ed, there's no evidence. Ed, oh. And one of the problems with people who study this case is back and forth between the supporters and the non-supporters, or the nons as they call themselves, or that they're labeled by the supporters, is that there's this theory in this group that if you have the case details better memorized than the person you're discussing it with, well, then you've won the argument, and they must be either guilty or not guilty, because I know the case better than you do. Some weird phenomenon, okay? You get it in some high-profile cases, but in this one, it's just 10 times worse. Now, so I've forgotten more about this case than any of these kids are going to ever memorize, okay? I did this every day, man, for years and years and years, back when it mattered. Okay? Now it's all settled, man. It's not going to be reopened. They've confessed how many times, over and over and over again. But let's go back to my credentials on the West Memphids Three, okay? Just like everybody else, I saw the HBO documentary when it first came out. I didn't watch repeats years later. I was also following this when it was on Court TV, when it first happened. And then I was following it on Usenet, in the West Memphids Three groups on Usenet. When all these people, like, Sean Wheeler and Alex Constantine and Kathy Bakken and Chris Worthington and Burke Souls, when the actual people, the supporters, the people who created these WM3.org, these groups, the original people bringing awareness, the people that were on the second show, the second documentary, reality TV show, the West Memphids 3 Part 2. What's it called? Paradise Lost Part 2. By the way, when they tried to pin it on the buyers, what happened to all those people who are convinced it was buyers? Well, they're all gone now, right? Now they're trying to pin it on another father, right? So, first of all, I heard about this thing just like everybody else. And I said, well, you know what? I'm open-minded here. It's possible these three punks didn't do it. And they got railroaded because they wore all black. They listened to Metallica. They listened to heavy metal, and they wore all black. So, and at the time, we're talking about like 97, right? I was in touch with Art Bell every single day of the week. This guy was calling me on the phone several times a day, right around July, Christmas in July of like 1997. All right? I was helping him out with his lawsuit there for free. And I got in touch with these people, West Memphis Three, and I said, hey, I'm in touch with a lot of people in the media, and I'm in touch with Art Bell like every single day of the week. His wife is a Wiccan. He's got the huge, biggest radio show in history, man. You go on his show, your website crashes. And they were so excited about this. Oh, we definitely want to know about this, especially the guy whose wife is Wiccan. They didn't know who Art Bell was. And so I was going back and forth with them trying to arrange these interviews. And little by little, I started seeing what these people were like. And I became convinced that they... What, is my audio just got messed up here? I was convinced... Okay, good. I was convinced that they knew that these three men were guilty. Okay? Just by their attitude and their behavior, their other interests... And I was offering to help out in certain ways, and they look about the phone records, and I said, hey, I can look into these phone records, because that was one of my huge specialties. I was providing phone records to one of the biggest companies out there that was selling phone records. Okay, I said, no, we don't want that because it might point in the wrong way. What? What? How could it point? If you're so convinced these guys are innocent, how could it possibly point in the wrong way? Then there was another young lady named True Romance 79 was her screen name. And she was sort of dating Miskelly. And what happened was there was a problem. She was donating like $900 a month to their commissary and to the awareness fund and all this kind of stuff. And one month she couldn't send the full $900, and they sent it to Eccles and Baldwin, and they didn't send anything to Miskelly, and she complained and says, hey, how come Jason didn't get any money? He's the one I'm in love with. And Jason said to her something along the lines of, yeah, how come they get the money and I don't get the money when they did it? When they're guilty. And she goes, what are you talking about? How do you know? He goes, I saw him. So there was like another confession. Okay, that doesn't seem. At the time, people were talking about it all over the place, but now people don't seem to care about that one anymore. So when I say, okay, one of the main things that has me convinced of their guilt is the confessions. Okay, a lot of people right away will say, well, Miskelly had an IQ of 70, and he was interrogated for 12 hours and without a lawyer and all this stuff. But Miskelly had made admissions to his cousins or something, or his friends, I forget their names, about his shoes, and he gave away his shoes. I don't want to see those shoes ever again. I don't want to ever see those shoes. I forget who they are. But that was before he ever went to see the cops. He was crying about these deaths of these little boys. If he had no connection to it, why is he crying? Why is he giving away shoes? There's that. Then before he was arrested, Eccles was at a softball game with a bunch of his friends, okay? and he was walking around bragging about having killed the little boys. Now, this is portrayed in Paradise Lost, the HBO reality TV show, as well. You know, he was there at this park, and there was 3 little softball girls just happened to be walking by, and they overheard him say this. And this weird way they portray it on this show, which is so biased and so edited. But if you go back and look at the police reports, that's not what happened at all, okay? There was a whole big commotion at that softball game where Eccles was bragging about killing these little kids, you know, and whole families were moving their families away from Eccles and his group of people because of the way they were acting and how concerned they were about all this behavior. Then Eccles claims at the trial that, oh, they must be making it up. They're making it up for attention. Then later on he admits, well, I did say it, but I was just joking. I was doing it for attention. So he's changed his story. And that's one indication of Eccles being a liar. Okay, the other indications of Eccles being a liar is when he talks about his involvement with the occult and Crowley, claiming that, oh, he's never had any, he's a Wiccan, he's not a Thelmalite, you know, or a Satanist, when we know that he is. And since then, we have his diary entries where he says, I am the devil, not a devil, the devil. And if you don't believe me, I'll prove it to you. He also talks in there about all kinds of anal hog tying and anal play with a woman consensually. I've heard from other people too that he had made those remarks too online. They don't want to go public. So that coincides with his brutalization of these 3 little boys and his fascination with this kind of stuff, hog tying and anal penetration or molestation. So we have all of that, man, okay? So Eccles says he's confessed to it in front of the softball girls. He made admissions during his interrogation. Says, well, if you bring my mother here, I'll tell you everything. Then you got all the polygraphs of all the people involved. Now, right away, people say, well, Ed, polygraphs are not reliable. They're not admissible in court, in a court of law, in a criminal case. No, they're not. But in this case, you would have to believe that every single polygraph was wrong. Okay, what are the odds that 100% of the polygraphs are wrong? That when people say they didn't do it, and they fail. No, when people say they didn't, they say they didn't do it and they fail. And when people say that they did do it, they pass. Yeah, so it's impossible. I agree. There's issues with polygraphs, especially back in those days, and whoever the polygrapher was. But in this case, 100% inaccurate. That's impossible. Then you got all this stuff about Eccles and killing animals and, and all this, animal sacrifice, bones and skulls in his room of animals hanging from the clothesline in the backyard, all this, the blood drinking that everybody admits to. Eccles drinking blood, talking about vampirism, doing ceremonies with his ex-girlfriend that everyone talked about, everybody knew about. Dominique Tier, her cousin, was in California, was a spokesperson for vampires in Transylvania. Dominique Tier says, of course I drink blood. My family drinks blood. We all drink blood. There's nothing wrong. And they didn't know that there was anything wrong with this stuff. Okay? This is what their life was like in these trailer parks. By the way, Eccles lived in the apartments right across the street, not at that time, but previously, right across the street from those little boys were found. There's so much overwhelming evidence, man, and beyond. Then Baldwin too confessed to his cellmate that he did it. Okay, then the cellmate, they couldn't. The cellmate held up during trial. They couldn't discredit him at the trial, but years later, when they have billboards up with dollar signs on them, reward this, reward that, yeah, the guy recants his statement years later. Okay, but they couldn't chip away at his testimony at the time of the trial when 2 juries convicted these guys, So to me, and I'm a criminal defense investigator. I believe everyone has a right to a fair trial. Okay, everyone has a right to a vigorous defense. Okay, and I hate to see anybody go to prison. Because listen, I'm different than a lot of people. Okay, like I know people. You see someone go to prison. And even these. I watch these predator catchers and stuff like that, and these are child molesters. These are child pornography people. They want to molest a kid. They were just intercepted from molesting a kid. And yeah, I want to see them go to prison. I want to see them punished. I want to see them sheltered away from society. We need to be protected from people like this. But I can't help but know that right now, I have defendants right now that are sitting in prison right now as we talk. And I'm nice, home, and comfortable, sitting here drinking a glass of water and eating a breakfast bar, with some chocolate in it, and I got my computer and my laptop and my phone and my TV set and all this stuff. And I can even go on the radio and talk to people, scream and yell at people. But they're sitting there, man, they can't take a shower. They can't, they can't, sometimes they're not sharing the housing there. They got to wipe their ass in front of their buddy, fight for every scrap of food they have in some cases, and fight for everything that they own. All kinds of brutalizations go on in these places, and this is, so it's hard for me to take glee or pleasure in that. But that's the system we have. That's the system of punishment we have for these 3 confessed murderers who pled guilty. They were found guilty, then they pled guilty. The Alford plea is a guilty plea. Oh, and it wasn't a guilty plea. It was an Alford plea. An Alford plea is a guilty plea. The only reason why you don't see more Alford pleas is because when you're about to be sentenced, okay, you want to plead guilty and show remorse. Now the judge is going to give you a little break in the sentencing. But if you're saying, hey, I didn't do it, there's enough evidence to convict me, but I'm still standing on this that I didn't do it, you're not showing any remorse, the judge is going to throw the book at you. That's just how that works. That's why you don't see many Alford pleas. You see it after they've served 18 years. Yeah, sure, now they can say it, because the state's tired of spending all this money working, defending this case for, a case that's supposed to be prosecuted, They're going to go back to court every 5 minutes with these guys because they had millions of dollars poured down there over their heads, There's plenty of people out there, man, in prison right now that probably didn't do it, that have a way better, less horrific crime, less confessions, less circumstantial evidence, way less in every possible way. Why aren't those people having millions of dollars showered on their heads? Because they're not Satanists? Could that be it? I got personal direct information. I've seen the PI reports about some of their buddies, their celebrity pals, who get matching tattoos with these guys. I have witnesses about them in real life that I've dealt with. So this whole business about, hey, I watched Paradise Lost, and I watched it really close. I watched it 10 times, and I've memorized this case. I go to Callahan, all this stuff, I have a little bit of involvement with this. And by the way, too, these people, the scum, these defenders, back in the old days, they would all say, oh, well, I wore black and I listened to Metallica and I've never killed anybody, And then, then you find out Dominique Tier, had problems, had lost a kid to Child Protective Services and was hoarding animals, in her trailer and all kind of crazy stuff like that. And these people say, well, I had problems with Child Protective Services, but I never killed anybody, And then this one of these same people who was famous for saying all this stuff wound up killing somebody, okay? And also there was another one, too, that her boyfriend shot himself out in front of the strip club where she worked. So these people these supporters did have chaotic lives full of drug addiction and murders and child abuse. Okay, just like the people they're defending, claiming, well, I wore black and I never did. They did do it, too. And also, too, get this, man, when I first got involved in this, right, this is what kind of people you're dealing with on the other end here. They got a hold of my email address, and it wasn't an email address I used all the time. It was one of my email addresses I didn't use very often, and they right away, they got to find out who I am and search me down. And they found my daughter had just been born. So this is 25 years ago, guys, okay? My daughter was just not even 6 months old yet. And I had put up an ad saying, hey, I need a babysitter. My daughter's I got a brand new newborn here at home, and I just need someone to watch my daughter while I take a shower or make a sandwich. Okay, just come over a couple hours and give me a break. I'll pay you whatever you want. All right, because I can't take any more of this. with this kid. I love my daughter, but I need to take a shower. I need to eat. A nap would be nice every couple.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Weeks. So these bastards found that ad, and 2 years later, I start getting all these replies to the ad. Saying, "Oh, I'd like to babysit for your daughter there, Mr. Opperman." So really? Okay, what, why are all these people contacting me all of a sudden to babysit for my daughter? And I start looking them up, because I'm email tracer. That's my specialty. Okay. And I start seeing that these people are located in Dallas, Texas. Dallas Donna, the one whose boyfriend killed himself in front of the strip club, the one who lost her kids and all this stuff. These people are trying to find a way to get into my house. Now, why? If it's just a harmless debate and you support some innocent boys who just happen to could wore black and gun, why the hell are you trying so hard to get into my house? And I told you about that girl too, the True Romance 79. When she stopped donating money, when she said, whoa, this guy just confessed to me. When she stopped donating money, they went to her house and left notes on her car saying, "Hey, where's this money? True, TR. We got used to that $900 a month. We want it, or else." I didn't say or else, but the point's made. You show up and leave a note on somebody's car if they stop donating money. That's serious business. They want no part of you because they find out that the people you're supporting are killers. So when people say to me, Ed supports West Memphids Three because he's a right-wing Christian and and he's never met a goth kid before in his life. Look at some of the girls I date. They're half of them are goth. You guys are nuts, man. All this business. It's just insanity. But so West Memphids Three, okay, and listen, if you're out there and you think, oh, they just wore black and they're not Satanists and they're not, and Baldwin is too, he's just involved in the occult as Eccles is. Eccles is just total sick. He's going to admit this, man, okay? Eccles is going to admit this and says, yes, I killed those little boys, I got power from it, and I got out of prison from I did it for my occult worship. And the way I got out of prison was due to the occult. Now, follow me for more occult classes. I guarantee you. That guy wants you to know he did it. Okay? And it's been and the last thing, too. Now, there's been recently a falling out between Baldwin and Eccles, right? Now, the way the surface is, is that Jason's the only one that confessed. When meanwhile, they all made admissions. And by the way, they bragged about wanting to do it too. This is what put them on the police radar to begin with. Eccles was bragging about wanting to do this, then bragged about doing it, then confessed to doing it, and then got convicted of doing it. Okay, come on. It's not a mystery. It's not a Scooby-Dooby-Doo mystery. It's pretty wide, pretty obvious. But how come none of them ever said, hey, I know I wasn't there that night, but maybe Miskelly did do it. He's confessing to it. I know I wasn't there. Or why doesn't Eccles say, I know I wasn't there, but maybe Miskelly did do it. He's confessing to it, but I know I wasn't there. The reason why they don't say that, because they were all there. That's why. Otherwise, they'd be saying, hey, I don't know if he was there or not. They know he was there because they were there too. The smart move would be to say, hey, maybe he did. They don't even think that's smart. Okay? That's when you got a case like this, read the defendants, that's what they're saying. The other guy did it. The other guy did it. The other guy did it, not me. Miskelly's saying, yeah, we all did it. Okay? Eccles is saying, yeah, we all did it. I did it myself. We all did it. Baldwin is bragging to a friend, yeah, we all did it. Okay, no one is saying, hey, maybe those other guys, but I didn't do it. None of them say that because all three were there. I think maybe there might have been another one there too. I'm not going to get into that because she hasn't been charged. All right, guys, we're out of time. Hey, Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother. Hello, Father. Go to thelash.com. THELASHE.com. The Lash or Lashe. Thelash.com. THELASHE.com. And if you go there and use promo code THANKYOU, all one word, thank you, no space, thank you, THANKYOU. I can't spell. Thank you. It's a promo code at thelash.com. You get 10%. This is a eyelash company. They do eyelashes for you, but they also sell like wholesale and retail eyelash equipment and lashes and stuff like that, and the glue and all that kind of stuff. A friend of the show here, she's been around a long, long time, friend of the show. God bless her. She's always in the chat room and stuff like that. And this is her company. THELASHE.com. Thelash.com. And you go there, you put in promo code thank you, you get 10% off. All kinds of goodies there, man. Let me take a good look at this and I'll tell you what they got. I'm not getting paid for this, by the way. It's just a friend of the show. Adhesives, shop extensions, shop tools. Those tools are kind of dangerous to me, but okay. Shop aftercare, shop supplies, shop accessories. So it's basically mostly wholesale stuff, and you're going to get an extra 10% off if you use promo code thank you. And that's for Mother's Day, for all the mothers out there who are also eyelash technicians. Lash techs, they call themselves. And they have best-selling products. It's a rapid dry adhesive for eyelash extensions. Now, if you're in a hurry, right, and you need rapid drying adhesives, you know, this is the place to go, man. TheLashe.com. And then the lash conditioner for extended lashes. You know, no one wants normal-sized lashes. You want extended lashes. Volume rapid dry adhesives for lash extensive. You know, let's say, you know, it's too quiet. You want to raise the volume. You got the volume there. And then multi-length genuine mink. Not the whole mink, just enough the hair from the mink to make the lashes with. Fur lashes there, extensions, a whole tray you can get there. Very cheap price. And free fume adhesive for sensitive clients. I'm very sensitive. As you could tell. I'm very sensitive, you know, and this would be the product for me. Because, you know, they call me a snowflake every now and then. I get called a snowflake. But that is thelash.com. We're out of time. Thank you so much. Good night.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18 plus.
Thinking anymore, forgetting to give back. Isn't it a pity? Some things take so long, but how do I explain? Not too many people can see we're all the same.
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.